For centuries, mankind has been fascinated with realms outside of our conscious awareness. Through a series of interviews with practitioners, guest speakers, and experts, Liberate the Podcast covers all that and more. From health and holistic healing to the supernatural, we aim to educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi, welcome to another episode of Liberate the Podcast. Today, I'm bringing back two people that many of you might have heard before. Helen, who is our Akashic Record teacher here at Liberate Emporium, and also Julian, and he had spent some time talking in his episode about the 5 elements of the mind. Now, these two amazing practitioners have blended their modalities and their expertise of their what they teach to create this hybrid course that really kind of captivates the best of both worlds. So I wanted to bring them on to talk about, this 5 elements of the mind meets the Akashic Records. Now, if this is the first time that you're listening to this episode and you haven't had some awareness on what the Akashic Records are or what the 5 elements of the mind is, we'll touch base, I'm sure, just a little bit within this episode, but I really encourage you, if one of those on its own really captivate you, go back and listen to those episodes. They're free to listen to, kind of check it out, because you'll have a lot more richer, deeper dive of information, because this one right now is about this hybrid and how they came to create this and why it's so valuable for people. So Helen and Julian, welcome.
Thank you.
I just if for the people that this is their first time watching, can we just have a very brief introduction on who you are, and then kind of what got you into working together?
Sure. Okay, I'll go first. My name is Julian, and I am a healer and a reader. I actually am a 5 elements of mind teacher, and I have other modalities that I use. What brought me to bring this Akashic and the 5 elements together is I took this wonderful class called the Advanced Akashic Records class with Helen, and it was interesting because after I asked her to come to one of my demonstrations for the 5 elements of mind, and then I think she had a great experience, right?
Blown away.
Yeah, and then we were just talking after. Actually, I was getting a reading from you, and before we started, she was all like, "Julian, there was a lot of in some of my readings, the 5 elements of mind was coming up," and then I was just like, "Whoa, okay, what does that mean?" And then I think that's what kind of started us on our little journey on how to get together. But enough about me. What about Helen?
So yeah, I'm an advanced Akashic Records practitioner and teacher. I'm also a film and TV producer. What brought me on this path with Julian is taking his 5 Elements of the Mind class here at Liberate Emporium. And as we were moving through the exercises, I was asking him, so the 5 elements, and Julian will explain that a little bit more, but the 5 elements are ego, mind, physical body, emotion, and soul. And as we're moving through those elements individually, I was asking who's talking, because I'm used to hearing my master's teachers and loved ones talk. And he said, that's your mind, that's your physical body, that's your emotion. And I had no idea that all of those elements had their own voice. So I was really blown away and encouraged to combine the Akashic Records with that modality.
Yeah.
Okay, now just for the people that are completely new to hearing both of these terms, can I have from both of you a little bit of a descriptor of what the 5 elements of the mind is and what the Akashic Records are? And then, if you can create like a living, working, breathing definition of what the 5 elements of the mind and the Akashic Records are. So I want to hear like the separation of them and a better understanding, and then what this joint is.
Yeah. I think I'll go first because I feel like the 5 elements of mind is kind of the beginning to get to where the Akashic would be. The 5 elements of mind is the ego, the mental, the body, the emotions, and the soul. What we're doing is we're taking those elements and putting them in a 3D space so that you get to the root and cause of any conflicts or problems that's going on in your life, because sometimes those can get confusing. So we start with the ego and we get the whole story. Then we start with the mental, get the story, and same with the body, the emotions. And when you get to the knowing of the soul, that's where a lot of the healing happens, where you're able to process through emotions and move through things. And I think that's where the transduction of new consciousness comes in. But with the Akashic, which Helen could explain, is probably the next step after that.
So working in the Akashic Records, that's a very, I guess, fifth dimensional perspective and divine place to connect to, where you are communicating directly with this non-physical divine energy. And the way that we access the Akashic Records is usually through a sacred prayer, but there's many ways to access the Akashic Records. But we use a sacred prayer, and the moment we are in the Akashic Record realm, we're able to communicate directly with our masters, teachers, and loved ones. So it's these three groups of high vibrational energy that exist to support us and who we're becoming. So when we're working in the records, we're communicating directly in this fifth dimensional space. And what's really great about bridging the five element work is you're taking that voice or that knowing and you're sort of bridging it into that higher dimension of consciousness.
And what I love about both of them is a lot of times in the Akashic or in any reading, really, people, you tell them this information and they're like, okay, I get it, but where can I start? Or how do I work? And the five elements gives you a place to start. Like you'll find out somewhere in the elements, maybe something is overacting or usurping power, and you're able to get to work directly on what the guidance was given.
So it's a way to channel more information and to give people the ability to, in a 3D space, actually work through some of these issues, situations, and direction that is given to them.
Yeah. It was interesting while doing research on this class and getting things together. I got really into Brian Weiss, what is it, Many Lives, Many Masters? Mm-hmm. And one of the quotes was, the direct experience opens up avenues to the heart, and these lessons have to be learned on those deepest levels of the heart for you to move through them. And that's exactly what the Five Elements of Mind is. It's giving you a direct experience of this problem so that you can move through it and hopefully get to the perfection of the soul and the soul level truth of who you are.
Nice.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, if somebody was coming through this class, what first off, who could benefit from taking this class, this hybrid class?
Everyone. I'm just kidding. Anyone who's been feeling stuck and just doesn't know where to start, like maybe on working on themselves or been having a problem that they just can't find the answer to, I love, because you're asking yourself to get to that place. No one's telling you like how this happened or what happened. You're getting to that by yourself. But what the Akashic does, it gives you a endpoint, I guess, how to get there, and you'll be able to be on that journey on your own. Does that make sense?
Okay. Now I'm just thinking, and does somebody need to have taken the Akashic Record class in order? Is there a prerequisite for this class? Is it or are all people kind of open to it?
I feel, so just taking one step back, I feel that a very analytical, skeptical, and scientific person could take this class, as well as someone who's very in tune and already connecting with their guides and into these higher realms. However, we do work with the pathway prayer process, and I can teach students how to use it. There's a lot of information that goes into learning how to use the pathway prayer properly, but you don't need to take a beginning Akashic Records class to use this class. You just need to be open to that prayer process, because it's something that we're going to use in the class. And I think the same goes for the five elements. I think you just need to be open.
Mm-hmm. Because everyone has the elements already, and whether they know it or not, it's just we're creating an awareness of the things you already have.
So this is a standalone. So, people that maybe already have taken a 5 Elements of the Mind class or an Akasha class are of course welcome, but even people that, are just, like you were saying, Julian, stuck and needing direction and, a place in a process to get through it. And so this allows, somebody to learn a little bit, which sounds amazing to me, because they can learn a little bit about the 5 elements in the mind, and they can learn a little bit about the Akashic Records, and they can decide whether they want to take those paths a little bit deeper if they so well choose, or just get the information and knowledge out of that own standalone class.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So when putting this, together and kind of creating this synergy of energy,
I like that.
Synergy of energy, what kind of things came up for the two of you?
Well, before we started, Julian, I had taken his class. I went into his class not knowing what to expect or even how to be structured with it. So I didn't go into it with a difficulty or an issue that I brought up. I just went into it very open, and whatever came up is what I kind of ran with. Then Julian did a session with me, and what came up for me is I also produce TV and film, and that is not the abundant part of how I survive. Creatively, it fulfills me, but in terms of financially, it's very hit or miss. So I went into the session with Julian, and what we were able to get to the heart of is that I was conditioned that creativity is more of a hobby than it is a career or a path of income. And the 5 elements allowed me to discern the difference and really get to the heart of that I am worthy of accumulating fortune when it comes to my creativity. So that's what I got out of the 5 elements session. And what's beautiful about being in the Akashic Records at the same time is that it's this perfect dimension of unconditional love and compassion. So even though my career may not be where I want it to be, or I experience these hardships, I'm always embraced in this light and love and encouragement to just keep moving forward. So that I really wanted to combine these two modalities because they're so powerful and so full of love that it just really encourages you to just keep moving along on your journey.
Beautiful.
And I just wanted to put it together with Helen because I've been using the 5 elements for about 6 years now. And even for 1 year, I was doing it weekly, and there was something with my second chakra that I couldn't get through. I had one session with Helen, and I swear, I kid you not, that the pain that was in my second chakra has never come back. And it's like, so sometimes you need both. And if I had both at the time, I'm sure I would be able to move through it a lot faster. I feel like these modalities together is just an accelerated process to healing and understanding.
Nice. Now, how long is the class?
6 hours.
Yes.
And we're breaking it up into 2 days.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great.
3 hours a day.
And what do people get out of going? So let's take through maybe a couple example people, and to help those that are listening. Some people that are listening, you may fully get this and understand this, and I get that it's people that are stuck or need some direction and clarity, but what is kind of like the experience, and what do people get out of this besides a little bit more clarity I'm hearing? But let's find a way to like tactile it a little bit. Let's nominalize it, put it in a wheelbarrow, and say, okay, this is this. Because it is two very abstract notions. So you guys are doing amazing, sharing and explaining, and I fully understand and see, but I want to make sure that everybody can kind of get a grasp at what to expect.
Yeah. On the surface, this class, it gives you an opportunity to experience a 5-element session as well as an Akashic record reading session, but then it also combines a lot of powerful lecture and tool and guidance when working with those two modalities. Because after this class, an individual can take their learnings and use this practice on themselves as they continue moving forward. They don't necessarily need to take an Akashic Records class, and they don't necessarily need to take a 5 elements. We'll be able to teach an individual how to utilize those. But to take it a little bit deeper into the class, so one of the first things that we're working with is there's a broad spectrum. You can come into this class not knowing what you need to work on, and you can come into this class with, let's say, an unbudgeable issue that gets worse with time and never better. So there's a really wide range of open invitation for someone to experience this. And what we do in the beginning of the class is kind of like a little bit of a worksheet or a workout, and we're getting the students to warm up and really explore whatever it is that they want to work on during this class. And then after we're moving through that first part, we do this really fun Akashic Records exercise that I've never done before in any of my classes, where the students will be partnered up, and one of the there will be a student who opens up the records of another, and that student is asking questions in that person's records and getting answers, and isn't necessarily sharing the information in that moment. They're kind of holding that to themselves, because we're sort of moving through some deep exercises, and there's going to be a moment where that information resurfaces towards the end.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, I take them through exercises to get inside their body, and we do a meditation. And then we actually experience the 5 elements for themselves, and what you experience about yourself, what you know about yourself. And then what happens after that, the students actually start to facilitate 5 element sessions on each other, guided, of course, with me and Helen. And then after they're able to see both sides of it, they'll be able to see the side of being a facilitator and the side of being a client or doing it on themselves. And hopefully with these tools, they'll be able to recognize that in their everyday life. So like if they get triggered for some reason about abundance or, you know, being rejection or anything, they could check in like, oh wait, what part of my elements need work? Or maybe my soul needs work and I need an Akashic reading.
Soul is always perfect.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Perfect, indestructible, and whole.
So that's great. So, you know, somebody's getting this awareness of how to do a session, how to facilitate a session, how to access the records, how to be within that space. And so you're really getting a lot out of this class. You're it's like going to, I don't know, a personal trainer and learning new workout exercises that you can continue to use every time you go to the gym, every time you work out. It's these practical, applicable, step-by-step things that people can take outside of that class in along with having the transformation and the healing that they go through inside of it.
Yeah. It's funny, the transformation that happens in the Akashic and the 5 elements, I think, are pretty much the same. Like, I didn't know how much they're related, because in the Akashic, it's called the light grid, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, the ego, the mental, the body, and emotions. Yeah. And of course, if you're in the Akashic, you're already talking about the soul, which is perfect. So I don't know.
It's everything else that needs
work. Did you want to explain the light grid?
Yeah. So the light grid. So every human being has an energetic light grid that exists in the Akasha that corresponds with the 5 elements. So it's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. I think that's probably it. And what happens in an Akashic reading is when an individual comes into that experience and is asking questions and receiving answers from their masters, teachers, and loved ones, they start to resonate to a higher frequency of truth. And that is the soul level truth. And in the 5 elements work, you're moving through all of those elements to get to, again, the soul level truth. So it's these 2 modalities that are very similar, but just have a different, I guess, representation or different
flavor.
Yeah, of getting to it, getting to the heart.
Yeah.
Cool. No, like, I mean, it's great. You know, I think that I would love to hear a little bit more maybe about taking through, you know, clients and transformation and some of the issues that you've seen people work on and work through.
Sure. it was interesting. I was working with this one woman, and she didn't know why she came in. That's why, because I don't know is perfectly okay. And we did a 5-element session, and she was feeling it. She was feeling the sadness. It was mostly about her father. I think she needed to forgive him. But we went through the whole 5 elements process, and it still wasn't done. She still felt something. So I was all like, let me open up your Akashic Records. And right when she opened it up, the tears just started rushing through, and she was all, I was not ready for this. I didn't want to do this. And it all started coming. And then what I was hearing was just like, you need to forgive your father. And she went through the whole process of talking to her father in the Akasha, and we closed the records, and she just felt 10 times lighter. And so that was a mix of both, you know, the 5 elements and the Akasha.
I love that.
But yeah, I don't know, what else are we talking about?
So there, what's come up for me after I was introduced to the 5 elements work with Julian, what's so great about being a teacher is the more I take classes, the more I'm able to really dive deeper and become a stronger practitioner. So when I would be working with clients and students, I was able to kind of discern the difference of where maybe the untrue belief existed, like in their element. So it was like, okay, in the soul, you feel this, you know this is true, but your physical body doesn't, you know? And what's been really helpful for me is when I'm in the Akashic Records, I'm able to pinpoint exactly where that the disharmony is. And then that allows information and guidance on how to resolve that and bring harmony to that person or to an experience or a situation, kind of bring it into the light, and then it allows that person to let go of it and move on. Not be stuck.
Freedom.
Exactly.
Freedom, liberation, and transformation.
Yeah.
It's definitely an amazing class, and I can't say enough about these 2 facilitators. It's not everybody has the gift of being a teacher. You know, it takes a very special person to be able to articulate, share, and actually guide people and at all different levels. Because I mean, when you're sitting there in front of a class, you have, as you were saying, Helen, you have some people that maybe are coming in and they're more scientific and skeptical, and then the people that don't know what they need to work on, and the people that are carrying and saying, this is the exact thing that I want to remove, you know. And so everything in between, and in order to speak to all, you know, you can't ever just speak to one. And I think you both have that gift of giving that and sharing that.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
If there was anything that you would want to leave the listeners with, any bit of wisdom, guidance, insight, what would it be?
I mean, I think I said this in my last podcast with you guys, but it's true. It's like, there's always you'll always find a way, and there's always a way to get through the issue, the problem, whether it's shame, conflict, and you'll find it. And I feel like as a teacher or a facilitator of both of these modalities, like that's what we get. We will hold the space for you to shift and find a way to move through, and you're never stuck. Mm-hmm. You're never blocked, fully blocked. Mm-hmm. It's just stuck energy, and you just need to move it around.
Yeah, and I think for me, what I've come to learn is, no matter how much I try to get down on myself, maybe just feeling discouraged or let down, at the heart of who I am, I really am whole and perfect. And I love to bring that essence out of people and out of myself, and just any opportunity to shine, to help people shine their own light on themselves is like such a gift and such an honor. So I just love to share that, and I think that that's the message.
Beautiful. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you.
If anybody has any further questions about this class or about the regular Akashic Records or 5 Elements of the Mind, as far as the class to take, or as far as getting, a one-on-one private session with either of them, you can definitely find both of them through liberateemporium.com. And I know you both have your own private business as well and practice, so what are some of those websites to share?
Oh, yeah, sure. Mine's is juliansombrano.com.
Mine is justbetruetoyou.com, and it's BEE and then the number 2. So it's a little tricky, little complicated, but you can find me through Liberate.
Same here.
And we'll put the links there. And of course, if you like this podcast, we really encourage that you take a moment to review it. Reviewed podcasts allow us to come up a little bit more in the search results so that other people can find this podcast, but also all the amazing podcasts that we've been putting out through Liberate the Podcast. So if you just take a moment, rate us, give us a review. 5 stars is great, Of course, anything that you like, though, but it really does make a difference, and it's the least that we can ask so that we can continue to provide this amazing free content to you. Thank you so much.